Welcome to an international celebration of spiritual living, a joining of two communities, one in Barbados and the other in the United States of America, who gather each week to celebrate spiritual living together. This service is presented by Centers for Spiritual Living Joyful Heart Teaching Center and Centers for Spiritual Living Barbados Teaching Chapter. These two congregations are bound by a shared commitment to the truth that we are all expressions of the one life that lives through everything. Whether you're joining us live on Sunday at 6 in the evening Eastern Time, or catching the replay Monday at 8 in the evening Eastern Time on New.
Are you ready to bring more joy into your life? Well, today is your lucky day, because we have exactly what you need. Join Rev Gina for Finding the Joy in the Journey. Come recognize the beauty of life. Explore various spiritual practices. Create greater joy today. Join us every Wednesday at 12 noon Mountain Time, 2 p.m. Eastern Time, only on New Thought Media Network. Okay, let's get ready to find your joy with Reverend Gina.
Hello, and welcome to Finding the Joy in the Journey. I'm Reverend Gina, and I am blessed to be here with you today. What a gift it is to have this time together to celebrate one of my favorite things there is, and that is joy. It is something that is inherent within us. We don't have to go looking for it. There's nothing grand gesture that we need to do. It's just simply to be in the awareness of who we truly are and allow it to be. Not do, just be. So wherever you are, remember, you have a different view today than you will tomorrow, than you did yesterday, than you will years from now. You know, I look at it like going up the side of a mountain. There's a different view every step of the way, and there's things about it that are beautiful and will continue to be beautiful every step, but it's always different. So it's so important to be here now and appreciate where we are right here, right now, because now is the only time that you can ever experience joy. So every week we come together with somebody who is what I consider living their best life, somebody that is an example of that joy, that exuberant life, and talk to them about how they do it, what brings them joy, how they bring joy into the world. Maybe to give some ideas, maybe just to recognize that it's in your life too. So today I am blessed to have someone that I consider a friend, somebody that I love, and is definitely someone that is familiar to the network. Reverend Dr. Sharri McMurray is an ordained minister of religious science and the senior minister and CEO of One Heart Retreats, an online focused ministry. She opened and operated successfully the first CSL affiliated retreat center on earth for 4.5 years before before taking her ministry fully online. 2020 did a lot to a lot of us, and it worked out for her. During that time, she served on CSL's Global Heart of Peace initiative for over 5 years. She's published 2 primers of affirmative prayer, Treatment with Training Wheels, and God Talk for Kids. Before entering ministry, Rev Sharri spent 30 plus years as a college educator, the last 10 of them online. She received her Doctor of Wisdom Studies from Emerson Theological Institute. She also hosted New Thought Media Network's weekly program, Global Focus Today, for 3 years. Education is her passion, and spirituality is her forum. She serves on the faculty for Emerson's Theological Institute. She's also the director of quality review for Emerson. Reverend Dr. Sharri serves on the Greater Kansas City Interfaith Council as the treasurer and volunteers at the National Museum of Toys and Miniatures in Kansas City, Missouri, as a docent. On October 6th of 2024, she married Timothy McMurray at Unity Village in Missouri, in the presence of family and friends. And I love their happily ever after story ever since. She is a gift and a mentor in my life. And she is truly an exemplary of joy. She brings it to others, and I believe she lives in it. So let's talk to Reverend Dr. Sharri. Thank you for being here and being that example of joy.
Well, thank you. I don't think of myself as an example of joy, but I don't worry about it either. I was yesterday at the museum, the National Museum of Toys and Miniatures, which is right here in Kansas City. It's part of the University of Missouri campus, but it's an independent institution. And the first time I went there, I was just giving someone a ride who was going to write an article about it. And so I went in and followed along with everything. We were done. The lady turned to her and she said, "Do you have any questions?" And the lady said, and the author said, "No, I think I've got everything." And the lady kind of raised an eyebrow at me, and I said, "Do you use volunteers?" And she said, "Yes, yes." So I gave her my business card. That was 3.5 years ago, and I'm still there. It's so much fun. The doing free tours is fun. I get to look at all the good, cool stuff. But the project I was working on yesterday is my favorite. It's called Story Connections, and it's a program that we do on the last Tuesday of every month, and we do it on that day because the museum is closed on Tuesdays. And that's because the audience for this program is Alzheimer and other memory care patients and their caregivers. We're not the only museum in Kansas City that does such a program, but ours is unique because of the nature of our museum. And it is just so much fun to see people who don't have a whole lot of joy in their life being given permission to play like little kids. We do a little program about one of the objects, and then we take them in the entertainment center and we give them cookies and tea and some activity. Yesterday, we talked about a set of 4 handmade Alice in Wonderland dolls that are in the collection. And so for our activity, we played Alice in Wonderland bingo. It was a hoot. And they were stealing markers from each other and rearranging them. Somebody turned to get their cookie, and the guy beside him would rearrange their markers on their bingo card. But we still had winners, and they still got prizes. And we always give them something to take home with them. So, of course, it had to be Alice in Wonderland theme. So our education director found, I'm telling the truth, Alice in Wonderland tea bags. I was just, and they got to pick their own. So it took a little while to pick their Alice in Wonderland tea bags because there were 6 different flavors. And it was as if, especially for the caregivers, it was if they had walked into a magic door and everything that was bothering them got left on the other side of the door. And they got to just be themselves and have fun. They got to play and eat cookies, for heaven's sake, and tease each other. We had a trunk of costume hats. There were fedoras for the men, and there were little what do they call them? Fascinators that just clipped on the side of their head for the ladies, and they all had feather boas. The guys weren't going to be left out of that. So every one of them had a bright red, green, pink, yellow feather boa on, and they were having the time of their lives. Just eating cookies and playing bingo.
But when you facilitate something like that, of course, there's effort that you put in, and you end up exhausted at the end of the day. But you're participating in joy. It's when you are the facilitator of joy, you're receiving that joy. It's just like prayer.
Oh, yeah.
It has to come through you. And you found a way to create more joy in your life. You volunteer and you found out something that you were interested that brought more joy. So I applaud you for
Well,
that.
I would encourage people to consider volunteering as a way to put more joy in their lives,
Yes.
because you volunteer to do things you like to do, for starters, and you're benefiting somebody other than yourself. You never know how many people or who they're going to be. Next month, my husband and I volunteer with an organization called Kansas City Gift, and GIFT stands for Generating Income for Tomorrow. It's a nonprofit that helps entrepreneurs get off the ground, and they are Black people, most of them young, but not all of them. One of the people who won a $30,000 grant last year was my age, and I'm 76. It's never too late to start something wonderful. And she was fabulous. I mean, they have a contest to pick who gets the grants and everything. And the thing that makes me excited about them is that they don't just give people money. In order to get one of their grants, you have to take a class on how to get a grant, which is free. You have to have a photo session so that you have a headshot, which is free. You have to work with a fashion, and they don't call it fashion. What do they call it? It's kind of like marketing yourself, but they have a specialist.
Mentors. There's
Yes,
programs and mentors that help them better
and
themselves
they set
to
it
be
up with
prepared for
every
it.
single piece. And if you get the grant, you also get a year of free business mentoring, a year of free attorney services, a year of free bookkeeping services, and they set you up a website. So they don't just drop you and run away. They support their people, and they make them ready for success, and then watch them bloom into success. And I love that all I do is be there to help. I move tables and serve drinks, but it's fabulous. And once a year they have a big fundraiser, and my husband and I get to dress up and go play with the folks who are there. We get to go to a gala, and he gets to wear his tux, and I get to wear a long dress and long earrings. And usually we do something easy, like, I don't know, we run the raffle. How hard can that be? But we get to see fabulous music and people being their true selves, without any restraint, without anybody saying, oh, you can't do that. They're all there, and they're all 100% there. And it's fun. And everybody can find something that they can volunteer for. That's not the only place I volunteer. I volunteer with the Kansas City Shepherd Center, which is a nonprofit for seniors, serving seniors. There are lots of ways you can volunteer, even if you just go to your own church and say, how can I help out? Or if you go to the Chamber of Commerce at the city where you live, and say, I'm interested in volunteering. Are there some organizations around here that I can work with? One of my favorite volunteer organizations, I found out today, was in danger of disappearing, because it was Dolly Parton's Imagination Library, and she passed away. But she left the reins to her goddaughter, Miley Cyrus, and she's going to keep it going. And what they do is, when a person finds out they're going to have children, whether they're married or not, doesn't matter. They go to the website, they just sign up. And then when the baby's born, you tell them the birthday. And after that, every month until the baby turns 5, till the child turns 5, they get a free hardbound book mailed to them. So when that child starts kindergarten, they have a library of 60 books.
It's so important. It's so important to find things that you're passionate about. I think that oftentimes people get caught up in the everyday, well, I'm busy. And yes, we are busy, but if we don't make the time for things we enjoy, we're not going to have joy in our life. Everything is going to feel like a chore. It doesn't have to be volunteering 10, 20 hours a week. It can be once a month. It can be once in a while. And it's about finding, and a lot of the things you do, you're in only a few years that you've been back in Kansas City. So you found them because you were looking for them. And joy is something that we need to find. It's within us, yes, but we have to tap into what we choose. Sometimes we're blessed to find it in our vocation, but sometimes it's not. So we need to figure out, what do we enjoy? What's out there that we think is a great cause, or who would I love to help today? And when we give, we always receive.
Yep. We always do.
So
And
I would love, go right ahead, sorry.
I was going to say, for me, I always get more than I give.
Yes.
You know, I always leave lifted up, no matter what it is I'm volunteering with, and no matter who it was that needed help.
And One Heart Retreat Center, I love. Please tell us a little bit about that and how it started. How did your heart lead you to that, and how has it evolved?
Well, what happened was, for about 10 years, I was teaching college, and for about 10 years, people would say to me, Sundays, you know, at church, you know, you ought to be a minister. And I would say, yeah, that's true. Why would God want me to be a minister? And then finally, you know, the cosmic 2 before came along and said, well, you know, they're going to keep asking until you say yes, so you might as well say yes. So I did. And I sat down to meditate. And I said, listen, God, here's the thing, because my God is Neil Donald Walsh's God. We have serious conversations all the time. Since I was like 10 years old, I have started my prayers with, listen, God, here's the thing. And I look up, even though I know there's no place I can look and God wouldn't be there, because that's how I was raised as a child. So I sat down to meditate. That's a challenge to start with, because you have to be still. Not just your mouth, your mind. Tough job. So I said, listen, God, here's the thing. You chased me for 10 whole years, and I ran as hard as I could run, and I finally decided to say yes. So I said yes, but now I need to know what it was I said yes to. I don't see me as a pulpit minister. There's too much politics in pulpit ministry. I just want to talk to folks about God. I just want to teach and help people learn who they are. So I finally, you know, my head shut up and I started to listen, and I got this vision. And it was a 3D smell-o-vision, television, sound-o-vision vision, you know, not just a vague idea. It was detailed. And it was a mountain retreat, a retreat center in the mountains. And I mean, I could see the buildings and the trees and the groundskeeping and everything. And so I said, okay, I can do that. And it took 21 years from when I got that vision to when I actually walked onto the grounds of One Heart Retreat Center. And it was something you say all the time. I don't need to know how it's going to happen. I just know it's going to happen, and keep putting one foot in front of the other, and we get there. My late husband was with me at that time, and he had been with me through the whole ministerial school and the designing, and he helped me build a business plan for it and all of that. But there were a couple of things we didn't think about. One of them was that he had cancer, and we didn't know it. And 4.5 months after we got there, he just was gone. His ashes are still there, because there's a little cemetery in that retreat center grounds, and I buried his ashes there. But life is nothing but surprises. How much surprise it is and how good or bad is all depends on how you look at it. I ran that retreat center by myself for 4.5 years. And that was during COVID, which meant that I couldn't teach except on Zoom. I couldn't lead a retreat except on Zoom. So what I did was I opened it up for, what do they call it? When you do short-term rentals, vacation kinds of things. And I had cleaning people who came, but I had to leave their check on the kitchen table because I couldn't come within 6 feet of them. So it was a little bit of a challenge. But when you have a challenge, you discover the skills you didn't know you had. I learned how to design retreats and implement them in a way that didn't require people to be in the same room. I learned how to teach classes using Zoom so that you could actually have face-to-face experience without being in the same room. It was a little strange when we had discussions because people would forget to mute and unmute, and so the pictures would pop up. Finally, I learned how to do that myself, to say, I get to say who's muted. And so I would just mute everybody. And then when somebody raised their hand, I'd unmute them and they would talk, and then I'd mute them again. That turned out to be a really good experience because I had my ordination in the middle of COVID. My sponsoring minister, finished her ministerial training and everything a year before me. And she waited until I was ready to be ordained because she was living in Arkansas too, but farther away than either of us could walk. And so we did a Zoom ordination. We got a beautiful picture of stained glass that's in a meditation chapel in downtown Dallas. And Debbie found the picture and sent it to me, and we used it to make our invitation. And we sent the invitations out by email, and we asked all of the clergy who were going to attend to please RSVP to let us know how to pronounce their name and to give them the background. So when it was time for the procession, Kathy Mastroianni, the executive director of the archives, was our MC. So she explained to each person what was going to happen as they came into the room. And then she would call a name, and she would unmute them for just that one. They would say one word like illumination or inspiration or wisdom. And that would make their face and picture pop up in front of the stained glass window.
You had a beautiful procession, even on Zoom.
Yeah, it was.
There's a way for everything. And you have a
wonderful. God gives us ideas without giving us the equipment to implement the ideas.
You have a great ingenuity in the way that you approach life, and you make things fun. And I really appreciate that. And I know you've been through a lot. You've got you're still newlyweds.
Yeah.
And
I decided we're going to stay newlyweds.
I love that. And the two of you are absolutely adorable. And, I really love that you continue to grow. And for the past 3 years, you've been working with Emerson Institute. You went back, got your master's, your doctorate, and then you stayed. You're director of quality review. Director of quality review. So tell me about Emerson Institute if you can, because there's a lot of people out there.
Emerson Institute is it was designed originally to be a correspondence school. Dr. Angelo Pizzelli built it 30 years ago, I think. And it was going to be a correspondence school, and people would send in their tuition, and they would get books and homework assignments, and they would send in their homework, and they would finish it. And it still can be that. But with Zoom, life gets a lot more interesting, and we are able to meet with our students in Zoom rooms. Some of us have teaching centers. My one of our retreats is actually called a teaching center. So if I wanted to, and if I had the people here, I could bring them to my library, and we could have a live class that met once a week or twice a month or whatever we wanted to do. And they could discuss in person and do their homework and turn it in. And that they would get credit for it toward their degree or their credential. Emerson gives credentials for minister and practitioner. I think they have 2 practitioners. They have the New Thought practitioner and the New Thought Interfaith practitioner. I think we have 5 ministerial credentials, from interfaith to transcendence to interspecies, which is animal ministry. That one, we don't have a doctorate, we only have a master's, but we do have both a minister and a practitioner. So, and you can get a bachelor's degree, a master's degree, a doctorate in 7 or 8 different areas of spirituality, because it is a school of spirituality. And I get to meet with my students by Zoom, and I love graduation. Graduation is always at the Anton retreat in October. And because I'm the director of quality review, I get to call the students up to get their diplomas because Dr. Ruth, who's the provost, has to give them the diploma. She gets to give them the diploma. So I get to call them up to get the diploma and line them up. And, I'm the graduate wrangler is what I am actually for graduation. But it's so much fun because their families are there with them and they're so excited. And most of them have already had a career in something. So they're not teenagers fresh out of high school. They're people who've been in the world for a while. And it's so wonderful to see them just blossom and come alive with yes. Because that's what ministry is. It's just a big loud yes. And it's all I do is teach them what the possible questions are. It's up to them to figure out what their yes looks like.
Could you tell people what Anton is? And we're broadcasting live on one of the Anton pages as well. So, but if you can tell me, for those that don't know, what is, we're on New Thought Media Network, which is New Thought in general. But I also love for you to tell us what Anton is.
Oh, you bet. Anton stands for Affiliated New Thought Network. And it is an organization that ministers and practitioners and just individual people who are interested, licensed Unity teachers and their spouse, that's plural of spouse, in case you didn't know that, come with them to the events because they have so much fun. It's the best conference I've ever been to. And I went to the Parliament of World Religions once, and I'd go to Anton first if I could only go to one. It is that their retreats are wonderful. They're modeled to be, how do I say this? To feed the body and feed the soul and feed the spirit. There are great speakers. There are great activities. I get to do a workshop each time. This year, we're going to make foldable finger labyrinths that you can take home with you. Permanent ones. They're on oil cloth. So you never know what I'm going to come up with to do for a workshop, but it's always going to be something that's got something to do with prayer and something to do with fun. So, and last year they had someone who did a workshop on how to use AI to build a website. They had people who do workshops on music. When Millie and Z were there, we sang all day, every day. And last year we had Ricky Byers as our music person. And she really, she had us parading and dancing. It was just marvelous. And they don't have classes, but they have workshops with content as opposed to workshops that are just fun, so that people can get continuing education credit for going to them and things like that. Anton and Ian and Emerson are not the same, but we're affiliated. A lot of the Anton members are focus ministries like me, who are also working teaching centers, so we can have one-on-one classes, we can have group classes, we can have in-person or by Zoom. It's very, very flexible. And you don't have to take all your classes from one instructor. In fact, there's a couple of classes that listen, I don't want to teach this. So-and-so does this really great course. And they don't know, that it's something I didn't want to teach. And it doesn't matter, because teaching what you don't want to teach doesn't work. And the people who teach the individual special classes are fabulous at what they do.
And I just want to mention for people that don't, you can be part of any New Thought organization and be part of Anton as well. It's not this or that, it's this and that. So for me, I'm part of CSL, but I'm also a member of Anton. So it's both. It's just another network to bring together the umbrella of New Thought, which is wonderful.
It is. And what I love about Anton is that it's an organization of people made up of people who care about the people they're made up of. It's not like going to a business convention. It's like going to a really cool family reunion, because they're my peeps. They are. I get more hugs in the first full week of October than I get the whole rest of the year.
Thank you. And You know, one of the things I always ask, and I'm going to ask you, uh, what brings you joy in your daily life? What brings you joy? And I know you find it in a lot of places, but
Yeah, there are a lot of things. Uh, I have my husband, of course, and I have my cat Bandit and my dog uh, uh, Penny, who is a little miniature whippet, little copper colored miniature whippet. And the cat weighs 30 pounds. He weighs 3 times what the dog does. There's my husband, of course, and my pets. There's needlework. I love to knit and crochet, and if you can draw it, I can knit it or crochet it or both. So I'm not real good at watching TV because it doesn't use a whole lot of brain. So I put my knitting bag in front of the television. I can pretty much, as long as my husband is there, so I can have a conversation, watch television, and knit. That uses up enough brain that I can sit in one place for a while. But there are other things. Taking Penny for a walk. I live in a wonderful townhouse complex that has big lawn, ginormous trees in the middle between the homes. So Penny, I took her for a walk yesterday, and now mind you, this little 13-pound miniature whippet. The squirrel, I swear to you, the squirrel went and ran up that tree, and she knew she could follow that squirrel. She knew she could climb that tree. And I'm telling you what, you never saw such a surprise dog in your life when she fell back there. She probably got 10 inches up the tree before her claws weren't enough and she fell backwards. And of course, I was standing there laughing until tears rolled down my face because it really was funny. And joy is not something you find or something you give or something you build. It's something you are. And most of us can't be joy 24/7, 365. But I figure if I'm doing 6 hours a day, I'm ahead of the game. You know. And I take Penny for a walk, and the little kids who live in adjoining houses can come up to play with her, and she just thinks she's died and gone to heaven because she's got little kids to play with. Grown-up people are nice, but little kids are her favorite. So, and my grandkids don't come here very often because they don't live nearby. You know, actually, great grandkids, the grandkids do live nearby, but they're busy with their kids. But whenever they come to visit, oh, she just runs from one to the next to the next to the next, waiting, pet me, pet me, pet me. And she doesn't wag her tail. She wags the whole back half of her body. She's just adorable. And Bandit, on the other hand, allows you to pet him. He's a 30-pound black domestic short hair. So, you know, and I will confess to one little thing that they have me trained. If I'm sitting at the kitchen table reading a book, I can be sitting there for an hour before I notice that this hand is going pet the dog, pet the cat, pet the dog, pet the cat, pet the dog, pet the cat. And if I forget, the head comes under my hand to remind.
they nudge it, absolutely.
Yep.
And, you know, I think that it's so important that we realize the joy in our lives. Like you said, just watching the dog makes you smile, makes you laugh. You know, you were sharing with me a beautiful example of that. You know, we get a choice on how we look at things. The most important thing we have is our perspective. It's not what happens to us, but how we react to what happens to us. And sometimes we're in public and people can, especially children, if they're, you know, they're acting out or whatever it may be, you know, sometimes we can find it annoying or frustrating or fill in the blank.
Yeah.
And you told me a story of how you approach things differently. So if you could share that, because I think it's important to remember we get a choice.
My husband had a string of doctor's appointments, and if you can get them all on one day, life is easy. So I take my knitting bag and a little book stand in my book, because knitting and reading don't use up enough brain either, but the two of them together is good. So I find a cozy place with a table and I park myself in my tea jug and I knit and read. Well, I noticed something, you know, when I looked up, and it's a long room, and on that wall is probably 15 chairs. And I'd say probably 9 or 10 of them had people sitting. And down here is a lady with her daughter and her granddaughter. The daughter is the patient, and the nurse comes and gets her, and she goes in back, and we don't know when she's coming back because they've taken for 9 appointments at once. The little girl got bored. So she went across the room and she crawled under the chairs. And there are people on the chairs, right? She's crawling along under the chairs. And grandma is just about to pull her hair out because she can't figure out what to do. So I was just happened to be sitting at the end where the little girl came out. So I got in my knitting bag and I got a handful of colored markers and a spiral notebook. And as the lady drags her out from under the chairs, I said, ma'am, and she turned and looked at me and I said, might these be helpful? And she took the tablet and the markers and the little girl was perfectly content to draw pictures for the rest of the day. And when they got up to leave, she brought me the picture she made for me. It lives on my desk now. I don't know the little girl's name. I probably wouldn't recognize her if I saw her again, but she made me a picture, and so it has a place of honor in my desk.
There's so many things in life that we can help with. It's all about where we come from. Now, it wasn't your job to do anything like that, and it wasn't about responsibility.
I'm a grandma. I would have not done that if my life depended on it.
And a lot of people, it's one of those things. I just want to mention we are live, so for anyone watching, you're welcome to ask us questions. Sorry I didn't mention that at the top of the hour. Please know that you can ask us anything, or comments are welcome. Just drop it right in the comments section. It's about how am I approaching life today? And what do I choose to get out of it? And moving along differently in our life. So many of us walk through in a bubble. I've got to do this. I got to do X, Y, Z. I've got to get this done. I've got to do this. And
calendars.
Excuse me?
I said, I have 3 calendars. I understand that one.
Yeah.
But, I learned something in ministerial school that probably is the most important thing for remembering the joy. And there's a group called Still Good, a New Thought group, couple, 2 women who sing. One's name is So and the other one is Good, so they call themselves Still Good. And they wrote a song called I'm Getting Rid of My Butt. And it really works for me because I've been saying for years that we need to remove from the dictionary one word, and that word is yabbit. And that's the butt they're talking about, not the one with 2 T's. So when I got to ministerial school, I figured they're going to teach me how to get rid of the yabbits, right? Because yabbit just fries my circuits. And it turns out there is a magic combination. It's called, instead of yabbit, it's yes and yes and blah, 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 blah. Yes and blah, 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 blah. Now, the blah, 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 blah may be a 4-day talk about why the yes part was wrong, but that's beside the point. What matters is that that person got heard, and they knew they got heard because you took enough time to say yes and blah, blah, blah. They may not like what they hear, but they like that they heard it.
There's so many people out there that need somebody to pay attention to them. They're not looking for, it doesn't have to be everything, but we can do something. We are here as the hands, the feet, the voice of spirit. We are those expressions of divine. There's so many people complaining about the world and what's going on in it, but it's up to us to be the change we choose to see in the world. And we can do that by handing a child some markers and helping that grandmother be a little bit more sane in that moment. We can do that through, just calling someone up and saying, how are you doing? Do you need anything at the store? Or I was thinking of you today. And giving just, a lot of times when people are walking through crisis, in the moment of crisis, people are there. But afterwards, people forget. And when we don't know what to say, we don't say anything at all. And I think it's so important to just call it and just say, hey, how are you doing? And that can be in anything in life. The kids are going back to school today, soon. Actually, in Rhode Island, it's this week. And if you were down south, it's already happened. So, wherever you are, it's one of those things to just check in with parents and say, how are you doing? Do you have everything you need? There's little things that are really big things, especially if someone's got a kid going off to college. I know one person that her child's her whole world, and now she's going to be home without her, and it's devastating. And then there's other people. My daughter is counting the hours till they go back to school, and she's more excited than anybody. So everybody is different, but it's so important as we evolve to get out of our own little bubble. Sometimes I think people get so caught up in struggle, or what has to get done or hasn't gotten done, or what's wrong in the world, that we don't realize we have control over our own world, our own attitudes. We have control over what we pay attention to and how we react to it.
I think it's really important for people to understand that sometimes you have to just stop. Just stop and take a breath and say, okay, where am I? What is happening right now that I need to do something with? And realize that you can always eat it like an elephant. You know how you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. And sometimes that's all you can do is just take one bite and chew it until it's nothing left to chew, and then think about taking another bite. And sometimes all it takes is for somebody to say to you, walking down the street, how you been? Good to see you.
Yeah. And realize that we're in this together. This thing called life is for all of us. And when we see somebody struggling or having a bad day, it's okay to just say, hi, how are you doing? Or reaching out to people, or even sending a prayer and holding somebody in prayer. That's a gift. A prayer is a real thing, and it's even better when we, let them know that, thoughts and prayers, sometimes we get caught up in saying that and nothing goes with it. But when we say, how are you doing? And what can I know for you? Or, and we are actually reaching out to people. It doesn't take 2 hours. It's not an overwhelming commitment. It's just being kind.
You just reminded me of one of the things I love about Anton. They have a team called Sacred Connections. And on the Anton website, there's a place where you can request prayer. And if you request prayer, that request gets sent to everybody on the team, because 5 seconds to fill out a card or something. And you can say, I want prayer. I want prayer and I want cards. I want prayer and I want email. I want prayer and I want a phone call. So what kind of support do you need? And they send it out to the whole team. And so sometimes you get 8 get well soon cards, and sometimes you only get 1. But what you always get is 8 prayers, because everybody prays over them before they do anything else. And what I have noticed recently is that even though a lot of people are having a lot of challenges, a couple of people have taken the time to say, I'm having such a great time, and I just want to say thank you. And
we have to
it
celebrate.
shocks you. It cracks when somebody says, you open it up and you're expecting somebody's, having surgery and blah, blah. And instead it says, so-and-so just got home from the hospital. They feel like $100 and they'd like you to know they're grateful.
And good things happen in so many ways, and they need to be celebrated. We need to talk about them. It's not bragging. It's not anything like that. It's celebrating life. We often talk about anything that's wrong, but how often do we brag about what's good? And whether it's our children, grandchildren, our partners, ourselves, it's good to say good things, celebrate them, because what we talk about, we bring about. So when we're celebrating the good, we're attracting more good to us. And it's a wonderful cycle, you know. I know for me that when good things happen in my children's lives or grandchildren's, my husband, my family, my friends, I celebrate it as much as I was, you know, you were gifted a car recently, and I know you enough to know how desperately you needed that car. When I found that out, I was ecstatic because you deserved this for a very long time. So the universe finally caught up with that, and I am ecstatic about it because I know not only are you safe, not only are you comfortable, but you've been given something new and joyous. It doesn't have to be brand new to be new, but you feel good in it. It's safe. You get to where you need to. And it's reciprocity for all the wonderful good that you put out in the world. It's come back to you. So I love hearing that. You know, we needed to get a new vehicle and something bigger. And my husband got what he wanted, as opposed to just getting a car that he's always had his whole life. And, you know, I always got the good one and he always just got whatever. And, you know, and the bottom line is he actually got what he wanted and he's so happy. And it's good to see someone excited about someone that you love, because he never cared about cars ever, but he really enjoys it and he is celebrating it. And I'm happy for him. You know, we talk about joy like it's something, you know, there's plenty of times that I was called Pollyanna. I've been called all kinds of things because I have a positive attitude, heaven forbid. But you know, that has served me in my life when I've gone through some serious things. So I encourage people to look for the good, look for the joy. I don't care if it's the soda that you like is on sale. Whatever it
Well,
takes.
you know, I give people an exercise when they ask me, you know, how do you do that? How can I do this? And I give them 2 exercises to do. And y'all are welcome to do these things. They're wonderful. The first one is you find a little round mirror, not that big, like a compact mirror that you can carry with you wherever you go, in a pocket or in a purse. And at least 3 times a day, you take the mirror out, you look yourself straight in the eyes, and you say, God loves you, and so do I. Then put it back in. The other thing is you get a little notebook, you know, just a little spiral notebook, doesn't have to be big, and a pencil, and you put it beside your bed. And I do it in the morning, but most people do it at night. It's just by the time I get to bed, I'm zonked and I fall asleep in the middle. And it's called a gratitude journal. And you write down 5 things that happened today that you're grateful for. And it can be, my shoe didn't come untied. It can be, the postman brought me 3 letters. It can be, the next door neighbor took my trash to the curb. Doesn't have to be something big. It can be, and it should be, I woke up this morning breathing. You know, tiny little things. Gratitude multiplies itself. Being grateful is like holding a magnifying glass. A magnifying glass. Can you see him? Up to the world. Imagine how this big thing changes what you see. Well, you know, sometimes I get something in the mail and the print is so small, this is the only way I can see it. But the point is that you cannot be resentful, angry, irritated, and be grateful at the same time. It is not possible. It's like trying to have your eyes open and closed at the same time. It doesn't work. So if you can just make an appointment, give yourself, all right, the last 5 minutes before I go to bed, I'm going to do gratitude. Or the first 5 minutes when I get up, I'm going to do gratitude. Doesn't matter what the rest of your spiritual practice for the day looks like. Doesn't matter if you have a spiritual practice for the rest of your day. The point is that for that 5 minutes, you are giving yourself the gift of attention. And it's the attention to what God is in your life. Because there isn't anything good that isn't God. God is just good with an extra, take it out, you know. And people get used to it and they end up starting a journal. And I absolutely loathe journaling. I can never think of something to say when I'm trying to write in a journal except gratitude. I have to limit myself or my notebook gets full too soon. But I just never have. And I take classes, and one of the assignments is to do journal. All right. What am I going to say now? Gee whiz, I read the damn book. What do you want me to do now? And I have actually written things like that in journals that got turned into to instructors, and they just laugh, because sooner or later you realize that all of the grumbling gets grumbled out, and then something magic happens. And here's something you're grateful for. Here's something you didn't realize was there that you're grateful for. And so, start little. Say, I'm going to find one thing to be grateful for today before I go to sleep. Just one. And when you get up in the morning, right, here's one thing I'm going to look for today as an improvement in myself. I'm going to smile more. I'm going to eat less salt. I don't do that one. I'm going to have balanced meals instead of snacks. Just pick one. Just one thing that you believe is possible for you to do. Doesn't have to look easy, but it has to be something you believe
just
you
for
can
today.
do.
That's the thing. It doesn't have to be for the rest of my life. I'm going to eat healthy. I'm going to go to the gym every day. It's just for today. What can I do for self-care?
Yeah. And see, that does double duty too, because not only do you feel physically better, but at the end of the day, you can say, look what I did. Look what I did. I've lifted these weights. I walked a mile. A mile isn't very long. It's like 12 blocks.
Everybody's perspective, because right now that's not an option for me, and I respect wherever somebody is, but you do what you can do, where you can do, how you can do it, and know that it's enough. I've been through a lot of physical stuff. I had to stop the show for a little bit because, and my experience with cancer, and I spent over 2 months mostly in bed, not able to walk at all, and I was in a hospital for over 2 months, and then I could do very little. Well, now I celebrate just that I can get up, that I can walk to the bathroom. Doesn't matter if I need a walker, I can do it. It's exciting, and I'm back in life again in a whole new way, and I appreciate what I can do far more than anything that I can't do in the moment. Life goes on in amazing ways, and sometimes it's a wake-up call, and some people choose to just be bitter. Just take it. I get at least in life.
My kids love those claymation shows at Christmas time. And there was one called The Story of Kris Kringle, and Mickey Rooney was Kris Kringle. And I don't remember who was the Snow King, the Frost King, but he was somebody famous too. And Kris Kringle's having a challenge because he's got all these elves working, building stuff, and they can't get the stuff delivered because the Frost King is scaring his elves. So he decides to take things in his own hands. He goes to visit the Frost King. Frost King opens the door. What do you want? And here's this little tiny guy. So he says, well, I'm Kris Kringle. I make toys for kids, and my elves can't deliver them because you're scaring my elves, and I want to see if we can't work something out. And the Frost King just looks at it. Work something out? What do you mean work something out? I said, well, isn't there some way you can have the interactions that you need, and my elves can still deliver these toys? So finally they get down to the nitty gritty, and he says, why are you like this? And he says, well, because I'm afraid to go out of my house. And Kris Kringle says, what? You're nasty to the whole world because you're afraid to go out of your house. Well, why are you afraid to go out of your house? I don't remember. Doesn't remember why he's afraid to go out. So Kris Kringle says, okay, I could rant and rave here, or I could actually do something useful. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to clear a path to your door. Get out of your chair, path to the door. And then, don't care how long it takes, as long as you just do a little more every day, you're going to get up and you're going to put one foot in front of the other. Put one foot in front of the other, and soon you'll be walking across the floor. Put one foot in front of the other, and you'll be walking out the door. And so, of course, they sing and dance and da-da-da-da, and the toys get to the kids. To me, that's a magic phrase. Put one foot in front of the other.
That's life.
Take the smallest bite of the elephant that'll fit on your fork.
Just today,
And
just in this moment, you do what you can. There's a lot of people that experience depression, and it's a very real thing.
oh, I
And I
know.
encourage people that are feeling despair or distraught, please reach out to people. Find someone to talk to, whether it's a minister, whether it's a practitioner, whether it's a licensed a therapist. Find someone that can help you, or, whatever it may be. Just know that there is a brighter day ahead for you. And like you said, take one step at a time to get there. Because if nothing changes, nothing changes. It's a real thing when people aren't experiencing the life that they want to live. It's a real thing when you're walking through a medical challenge, a financial struggle, a breakup, grief of any kind, a job, loss of a job. There's real stuff that happens. But that does not mean that we can't experience joy in every day. And I want people to know that there's so many ways. It's don't look at what you can't do, but look at what you can do. And we get that choice in any given moment to look at what we can do. And, I'm going to just put my information up there. People are welcome to reach out to me. It's Gina at, it says dot, but it's supposed to be at believeinouttoday.com. And you can reach out to me and know that, we are here to be that change that we wish to be in the world, all of us. But how do we do that? And some people it's by example. Some people it's, that they know how to, but they don't think they have the time or are afraid to be their best selves. You were born to shine. And if you don't feel like you're shining, I encourage people to get help with that. Whether it's finding someplace like Anton or a spiritual center or whatever it may be, find help with that. Even if it's just saying, I don't know how to do this. Like that ogre and, the wizard was, somebody finally stopped and said, what's the problem? And I remember it was also linked just in general. He wanted a toy. And he gave him a toy, and it made him so happy he cried and his heart melted. And that's really what it comes down to, is that we get to find new ways to look at things. Every situation is an opportunity. We get to live joyful lives if we choose to, regardless of circumstance. Some days are just easier than others.
Well, yeah. Absolutely, some days are easier than others, and some days are harder than others too.
Yeah. And I thank you so much for being here. Thank you for being a light in my life, which you truly are. And I encourage people, reach out, do whatever you need to. And this network has so much good news. I encourage you, if you're looking for spiritual community, every Thursday night, I host a sacred circle at 7 p.m. It's a Zoom meeting, and you can write that information down or email me, and you are invited. And it is a different topic every week. It's a 1 hour, 7 p.m. Eastern time. I want to make sure I put that out there. 7 p.m. Eastern time. And it is a place of spiritual connection. Whatever, is on your heart. Remember, we also have a Sunday service that I'd love to mention every Sunday evening. It is live Sundays, but also it's on New Thought Media Network on Monday evenings at 8 p.m. Thank you for being here with us. Thank you for being an example of joy. Reverend Dr. Sharri McMurray, everyone, thank you so much for being that light for us in the world and a great example. And know that I love you all, and I am grateful that you're here. Live your best life now. There is no time like the present to be in joy. So many blessings and love. Namaste.
Thanks for watching. We'll be back again next week with more Finding Joy in the Journey. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe. Join us at 12 noon Mountain Time and 2 p.m. Eastern Time, every Wednesday, only on New Thought Media Network.